All right, guys. Now this is an appendix, and this study is very very long, so it might just stand on its own. I think merit, like it's just apart from the study because the study of Luke chapter 24 verse 39. And Jesus commanding the disciples to touch and to see him. Okay, eat that and so on. Okay, it's very long, but this is very important because there are thoughts that were sort of crossed over, that sort of crossed over from this event to the resurrection. And Jesus had to say, no, I'm not a ghost. Now, I think that the NIV is using the word ghost because we tend to think of a ghost as not having a body. So that's why they use the word spirit, because spirit, okay, even though Jesus says a spirit doesn't have flesh and bones, but I think ghost, there's a more like immateriality to that word, if you will. It's like ghost, a ghost story, or just a ghost appearing, or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Alfred Hitchcock, ghost stories and stuff like that. So there's something about that German word ghost that sort of lends itself to immateriality. I think that's why they chose it. I'm just guessing, but I think that's why. Now let's check out the story, and I'm gonna tie up. Okay, I'm gonna tie this. I'm gonna link this story to the resurrection because there are thoughts that appear in both stories. Okay, they thought that he was a ghost in this story, and then they thought that he was a ghost, after the resurrection, which was bodily, by the way, and then they had to figure that out by touching and seeing him. You know what I'm saying? So it says something like this. It says in verse 23, it says, okay, after he, meaning Christ, has sent the crowd away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there alone. Okay, which is a good thing to do. When you pray, just be alone. You don't want nobody to nag you. You understand what I'm saying? Verse 24. But the boat was already a long distance from the land. Let me stop there. There was a lady, an Australian, I forgot her name though, and thank God. I mean, who wants to remember people like that anyway? But I mean, and it said that Jesus walked on a jetty, meaning that he didn't walk on deep water. He just walked on a jetty and a skid of water, or whatever the case may be. Now, she was defeated by Christian people, including Dr. Clifford Wilson, who was the president and the founder of Associates for Biblical, Research (ABR), which is an archaeologically based ministry, which is around today. It's just I don't know if he's with us anymore. I mean, he was up there, a little bit up there in age, but whatever the case may be, she was firmly defeated. Okay, now it was far away from the land. So this is very important to understand that he walked on deep water. But the boat, it says over here, was already a long distance from the land, battered by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Okay, now just check this out. Verse 25, it says over here, and in the fourth watch of the night, he, meaning Christ, came to them, meaning to the disciples, walking on the sea. Walking on the sea. Now this was in the middle of the night. I mean, this is in the night, and you see a figure of a man. You see a figure of a man walking on the water. Well, nobody can walk on water, supposedly, right? They were thinking nobody could walk on water. Now Jesus created the water, the elements of water, which we call H2O. And so what I'm saying? See, and what are you gonna say? He didn't have a body when he walked on the water. Just because he walked through a wall or appeared in a room, it doesn't mean he wasn't. He didn't have substance. That he didn't have material. That he didn't have a material body. Because you're gonna have to say that he didn't have a material body when he was walking on the water. If you're talking like that, you understand what I'm saying? That's just the deal. That's just the deal all across the board. Verse 26 says something like this: when the disciples saw him, meaning saw Jesus, walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost. It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. You see? They thought it was a ghost. It's the same thing that they were thinking. Okay, it's the same thing that they were thinking after Jesus was raised from the dead. They thought it was a ghost just because he appeared in the room, okay, with locked doors. So what? Listen, Jesus' body, even though it was material, okay, lacked the dependence that it had before on itself to maintain itself. In other words, okay, it depended on water, that was gone. It depended on blood, that was all gone. Blood and water came from his pericardium, from his heart. Okay, Martin Lloyd-Jones said that he died of a ruptured heart. Okay, that's the proof of that. Water and blood came gushing out, you understand, from the pericardium, the sac that the heart is, the heart rests in, you understand. He didn't have any water. He didn't have any blood. He didn't have no electrical impulses or nothing controlling that body. Nothing. So how did he move his feet? How did he move his fingers? How did he eat? And the digestive system, what's the deal? Well, the body was complete. It was a body, but it was completely dominated by the spirit, not by the things that it needed to function like it did before. That's the thing. It still was a body. It still was a body. Oh, but flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom. Yeah, but who said that Jesus had any blood? And anyway, we're talking about corruptible blood and flesh and bones and stuff like that. Well, Jesus wasn't corruptible. Jesus saw no shachat, no corruption. You understand what I'm saying? The Hebrew word for corruption or decay, shachat, is the Hebrew in verse 10 of chapter 16 or Psalm 16. Psalm 16, verse 10. Law. It says it twice. You will not abandon law. It's not. It's a Hebrew negative, law. You will not abandon my soul or leave my soul in Sheol. Abandon is the Hebrew word azab. Azab. That's all ayin, zayin, bait, you know. You know what I'm saying? Throw a couple of A classes in there or whatever the case may be. And you will not allow your Holy One, Chassid, okay, Chassid, Holy One, to see shachat, corruption. Shachat is spelled out like sheen, chet, and maybe a tet or tav, one of those T-sounding letters in Hebrew. You understand what I'm saying? I don't have it opened up, so it's probably it has to be one of those T's. You understand? So it's just a deal. But he thought that he was a ghost. And they cried out in fear. That's why he went up to the mountain to pray for the disciples, that they wouldn't be swallowed up in this hurricane or whatever they were in. You understand what I'm saying? And Jesus in Matthew's gospel stopped the hurricane, a mini hurricane from becoming a big one. Hurricane is nothing to the Son of God. You understand what I'm saying? To stop a hurricane. Man. The winds and the sea obeyed him, but he walked over he worked on the sea. You understand what I'm saying? He walked on the sea, and they were fearful, terrified. And let's check it out again. It says over here, it says in verse 26, it says something like this. It says, when the disciples saw him, meaning saw Jesus Christ our Lord walking on the sea, well, they were terrified and said, it is a ghost. It is a ghost. It's a person who doesn't have flesh and bone. It's not a normal person. He wasn't a normal person anyway. I mean, he was the God-man, but still. They say this is supernatural. This is a ghost. This is a spirit, visiting us. from the afterlife or something like that. I mean, this is somebody who died and he came back, and then he doesn't have a body. He's just doing things like it was Jesus. It was the same Jesus with the same birthday suit he had on in the incarnation. You understand what I'm saying? He had to continue his body with him. Didn't discard it in order to walk on the sea. That's just the deal. That's just it. Now let's read verse 27. Let's see what happened after that. Okay, it says over here, but okay, immediately, okay, Jesus spoke to them, meaning to the disciples, saying, "Take courage. It is I." See, it's the same thing he's saying. It's the same thing he was going to be saying, after the resurrection. Okay, it is I. He said the same thing. It is I. Do not be afraid. Now, remember what I said that we have to test even Jesus. We have to test the spirits to see if they're of God. I'm just saying. We just can't believe everything and everybody at face value. Just because we get a visitation for Jesus, we have to test him out and talk to him about the cross a little bit to see if it is Jesus. Nobody's above testing, even the Lord. Like I said before in this message. You understand what I'm saying? If it's still attached to the earlier message, you understand what I'm saying? If it's by itself, it'll be the first time you're hearing it that I said it in this study, which is an appendix. I'm just there. Test the spirits to see if they're of God. 1 John chapter 4, verse 1. Anyone. I don't care who it is. It says over here, Peter said, you see, Peter's always the first one to say something. This gospel is so true. The gospel accounts, the New Testament, the attitudes just remain the same. Peter was the first one about even before that. Forget about that for now. Meaning Peter was the first one to declare one of the greatest statements ever in this book. A couple of chapters down on the road, chapter 16, he said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." You see? That's just the deal. So he says, the attitudes and stuff like that is dead on. And I'll give you another example real quick before we get into what happened to Peter. You know what I'm saying? It's glorious. Remember when Mary became pregnant via the Holy Spirit? What was the first thing that she did? Well, she went and tried to tell a woman about it. You see? It's so true. It's so dead on. But let's get to the reaction. Let's get to the what happened. Okay. Let's get to verse 28 and see what Peter said. Says, remember I said that we have to test even if the Lord shows up in our room. That's just the deal. Now, it says over here in verse 28, it says, Peter said to him, meaning to Christ, "Lord, if either Aeon, either Aeon or A, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." You see, he didn't say, "Oh, it's you. Okay, hi, Lord, by the way." He just mosey on down the water over here. You understand what I'm doing it by myself? No. This is like Peter doing something right for a change. You understand what I'm saying? He tested the experience. He didn't say, "Lord, it's you." No, Peter said to him, "Lord, if it is you." Okay, I ain't gonna do it. If it is you, command me to come to you on the water. That's what he said. You understand what I'm saying? Command me. By the way, I keep on giving examples of the resurrection from this. I mean, it's kind of funny that he gives a order, okay, and maybe it's an imperative to come. Well, he gave a few imperative moods, okay, imperative commands, I should say, in Luke chapter 24, verse 39. See, touch. You understand what I'm saying? Eat that day. You understand what I'm saying? Over here, he receives a command from the Lord in verse 29. It says something like this. And he said, meaning Christ said, come. You see? And Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. Came toward Jesus. You see? That's verse 29. Now, what are the Jehovah's Witnesses going to say? That Peter didn't have a body? Peter had a body? Peter had a body? And he still walked on the sea. That's just the deal. What are you going to say about that? Oh, well, Jesus did some amazing things. Only spirits can do. I mean, you see him going through walls and popping up and appearing in the midst of the disciples and stuff like that. Said, oh, sexy and sassy. And Mark from Missouri, J.W. from Missouri. You understand what I'm saying? Oh, you see Jesus doing things that only he can do. By the way, he used something from 2 Corinthians. I forgot the verse. I got to check that out, I already did a study on it. Rebuked his position on it. Like the Apostle Paul said something like this, something to this effect. We do not know him according to the flesh anymore, or anyone else, or something to that effect. But the problem is in that text, and I know I'm butchering it a little bit, I don't have it in front of me. But he said, the Apostle Paul said everybody else. Meaning we don't know Christ according to our understanding. That's what it means in 2 Corinthians. I'll get the verse. Maybe I'll put it in the appendix, after this. You know what I'm saying? It's going to take some time. It's going to take me to tomorrow to do it. You know what I'm saying? It's getting late. Okay. Says over here in verse 30, it says, but, okay, seeing the wind, I don't know how he saw the wind. I mean, goodness gracious, but seeing the wind, he, okay, became frightened. See, that's Peter, though. And beginning to sink, okay, he cried out, Lord, save me. Now that's Peter, though. Verse 31. Immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of Peter, and said to him, you of little faith, why did you doubt? You of little faith? Wait a minute, Lord, I just walked on the sea. Look at little faith. What you talking about? It took a lot to get out of this boat and head to you. I mean, I was heading towards you. I sunk a little bit, but still. No, he had little faith. That's what Jesus said. He's the Lord, and he can say what he wants. He can do what he pleases. He said, you have little faith. I'm going to count that faith that you had, okay, as little. Little. You walked on the sea. Nobody else walked on the sea ever before except for Jesus and Peter in human history. Those are the only two that walked on the sea. Jesus and Peter. Nobody else did it. Nobody walked on the sea. This ain't Superman 2, you understand what I'm saying? Nobody else walked on the sea. Listen, I think an axe floated in the Old Testament and went up on the sea, on the water, you understand what I'm saying? That was a miracle in and of itself. Just the weight of the axe, the weight of the Lord Jesus, and the weight of Peter. Peter was a big man. He dragged, that's how you say it? I forget my English here in the Philippines. He dragged 153 fish by himself. It was a big, he was burly. You know what I'm saying? He got to the tomb second. That's the deal. That's why. But he said that his faith was little. It wasn't big. It was small. Why? Well, he began to just over here. Look at the wind. I mean, I mean, Jesus was right there. Why you got to be afraid? You have little faith. I mean, Jesus is right there. Says immediately Jesus stretched out his hand. I mean, he was right there, arm's distance. Goodness gracious. I mean, it was right there though. Why did you doubt? It says the last part of this verse 32. When they got into the boat, the wind stopped. You see, the wind stopped, verse 33. And those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, you are, and that's probably Amy A. Eston. It's probably A. You are, certainly God's son. But they worshiped him. This is one of the many times that he is worshipped in this gospel. Was worshipped as a baby, understand what I'm saying? Around verse 11 of chapter 2. Then he was worshipped again in chapter 8. And he's worshipped over here, 1433. And he was worshipped a couple of times, you understand what I'm saying? In chapter 28, even before that, maybe a couple of more times. That's just a deal. But I'm just saying, I can't forget why I'm giving you this. I mean, this is a nice and true story and all of that. I mean, to increase our faith and stuff like that. You understand what I'm saying? It's possible to walk on the water right now if you have that faith. It is possible. All things are possible to you. I mean, it's possible if you have faith in the Lord. And not a small faith, you're going to walk on the water. That's all there is to it. If I keep my eyes on Jesus, I can walk on water, sung Audio Adrenaline. I'll be all right when the wave comes crashing down. If I keep my eyes on Jesus, I can walk on water. I'll be all right. You understand what I'm saying? That's what it is. But I can't forget why I gave you this in the first place. I gave you this in the first place to match it up with what happened after the anastasis of Jesus. That they were crying out. They were saying, not crying out, but they were thinking in their hearts. You understand what I'm saying? This is a ghost. This being. He doesn't have a body. He's a ghost. I mean, he just popped up from nowhere. You understand what I'm saying? It stood in the middle. But they did that before. They were wrong before. They were wrong in this chapter, and they're wrong yet again. Thinking that Jesus was just a ghost without materiality or substance, some kind of flesh and bone, you know what I'm saying? It is I, he said. It is I. It's the same thing he said. Let's look at the Greek a little bit. I want to look at the Greek, and this could stand alone, by itself, and not as an appendix or something like that, or a prefix, whatever the case may be. You understand what I'm saying? Let's look at it. Beginning at verse 23 of the Gospel Kata Mattheon, chapter 14. So let's get there. This is in 1 John. I mean, that's just a deal. I mean, that's just it. So let's look at it here. Matthew chapter 14. Matthew chapter 14 and verse, beginning at 23, I believe, right? 23. So let's see over here. And everybody knows that. I'm not going to be repeating and too much, Having dismissed, apalusa. So this is That's a aorist participle active there. You see over here the sigma nominative case ending, and then sigma alpha. I believe that's the aorist first aorist morpheme, and lu present tense stem, and then apa is a preposition over here. It says the, and that's two, so that's an accusative article. The crowds, okay, loose crowds. Okay, he meaning Christ went up. Okay, nebe. Now that's ana there. The alpha was shaved off, and the epsilon is the augment in the second part of the word over here. You understand what I'm saying? Anabino. So the epsilon goes with bino, if you will. Like that. That's just a deal. And on, and that's ace. On the, okay, mountains, so that's ta, neuter article in the singular. Aras, okay, for mountain there. Montaña in Spanish, actually. Okay, by, and that's kata, that's just an elision, it's abbreviated himself. Okay, Idion himself. Okay, and to pray, and that's an infinitive, to pray. Okay, prasuksastai. Now I forgot what's the morpheme. It says thigh or just I. So I gotta check out the middle form. Probably it's thigh, but I gotta check that out. So you have three choices: either I, thigh, or sty is the infinitive morphemes. I gotta refresh my mind with that. Evening. Okay, now, and that's a now is there. Evening is apsias, evening. Okay, having arrived, and it says over here again, menes, and that's a participle, and that's actually mene there, but you don't see the mene. You see the eta and the sigma genitive case ending, and then men, but it says actually mene because it's feminine. It's an aorist participle middle. Okay, so you see the epsilon. You see for a second. You see omicron. You see gena me nes, and that's just the deal right there. Alone, and that's manas, alone. Okay, he was there. Okay, ain, and then eke. Eke, that's an adverb. Eke. There. Okay, now so let's go on. It's kind of interesting. It says over here. See what happened over here? Okay. And Greek word de, that's postpositive. That the ta article goes with the boat. Okay, ta, and then boat is actually ploion. Okay, the boat. The boat now, and that's ede. Stadia, and that's stadius. Many, and that's palus. From the apates, from the land, and that's probably the genitive of place. From the land, that's just probably the genitive place there. On the land, and that's gas, and that's the same word recorded for earth in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, but it's an accusative over there, gain. Okay, being. Okay, and that's being is apechen, being toss. It says over here ba sani zamen nan. Okay. And again, it's I got mosquitoes in my arm in the Philippines over here in the nighttime over here. Goodness gracious, it's hard to read. And it says over here, basa ni saminan. And this is a participle, a present participle middle, passive, and a nominative neuter, singular. So you got the nu there as the case ending, omicron connecting vowel, and men as the middle passive participial morpheme, and so that's just the deal. By, and that's hupa, the, and that's stone, that's a genitive article in the plural. Waves, okay, kumaton was, in Greek word ain't in a perfect tense, that's continuous all the time. For, and that's gar, contrary, it'll be enantias, contrary. Okay, the wind, ha anemas, and not pneuma, as a matter of fact. Wind is translated into pneuma is translated into wind a few times in John's Gospel, chapter 3, and also the same word is translated into spirit in the same chapter. You know, someone that has a semantic range like that. Now, it says over here. Okay, all right. In the fourth, it says, just as in the fourth, tetarte. It sounds like tetragrammaton, right? Because the word four is inside is in the meaning of the tetragrammaton. It means 4 letters or 4 writings, tetragrammaton. So over here is tetarte, for in 4 or in fourth. Now the postpositive, watch, it says over there fulake of the, and that's taste, night, and that's the genitive of time. That's easy. That's the genitive of time, in my opinion. Just like Jesus, Nicodemus came to Jesus by night. That's the genitive of time. Okay, so I would classify this as the genitive of time here. He went. Okay, elten. Okay, he went. AIA, aorist indicative active. He went, meaning Jesus. You understand what I'm saying? To them. Okay, pros, and that means toward. Can mean toward them. Altus in the accusative case. Okay, the case of limitation as to the extent of the going toward was limited to the disciples walking. Okay, peripaton. Okay, walking on, epi, walking on, okay, the tain sea. Thalasan, the sea. Okay, on the sea. And then the hoi de. Okay, hoi de, the disciples, mathetai, the disciples, having seen him, and that's an aorist participle active, having seen him, okay, idante, so that's active, so you see the nunatal there, active participial morpheme, epsilon sigma, just like in Pontes, is the nominative plural case ending. And omicron is probably a connecting vowel, and id is the stem here. Actually, not from parao. It's just it uses a completely different stem in this construction. It's just like ops, completely different, and that's just a deal. Him, Altan, and that's from the Altos paradigm. Altos, Alto, like that. On, epi, okay, the, That's the genitive of place. Epi, taste, upon the sea. Tala says upon the sea. Walking. Peripatunta, walking on the sea. Were troubled. When they were troubled, it says over here, etarach desan. You see the aorist over there, aorist, first aorist morpheme. First aorist morpheme. Let me see, the latent eta is the aorist passive morpheme there. Okay. And then saying, and that's another participle, okay, legantes, and that's the same, case ending epsilon sigma, nominative plural, active participial morpheme, nu tau, 1 or 2, participial morphemes in the masculine side of the chart, and leg is the stem, and omicron is the connecting vowel there. Okay. Saying a ghost, okay, Fantasma, a ghost, and not pneuma. This is not pneuma here. Okay. If you look at the lexical form, it's still not pneuma. Okay, Fantasma. Okay, it's still not pneuma. A ghost. It is, okay, Eston, and that's from the Amy A. Eston paradigm. And in Kai Apa 2, fear, and that's where you get the word phobia from, Fabu, they cried out. They cried out. Ek Raksan, and you see the sigma and the alpha there for the first aorist, secondary active personal ending nu, third person, by the way, nu sigma nothing. You're right. Epsilon kappa for the it has the preposition there, epsilon kappa, and that's just a deal right there. Rock is the stem there, rock. Immediately, it says over here, euthus, immediately now, says that post positive, okay, spoke, okay, ela lesen, and that's the sigma epsilon is first aorist, but the third person singular, sigma epsilon, and the epsilon is there as an augment, sort of like an ed, la lesen. And the epsilon lengthened to eta before the transformative. That's usual occurrence. And then you got ha there, almost about 20,000 times as the article appeared in the Greek New Testament. Jesus, Jesus. Okay, Jesus. It says this over here. Jesus, to them. Okay, autois. Choose one of these keywords, autois in the dative, which is the case of interest meant. He said, saying legon, and that's a participle. The omega nu is proving that out, like ubarchon, labon, haon, like that, saying legon, present tense stem there, and it's present up above. Legon, saying, okay, take courage. Take courage. It says over here, thar sete, and that's a command. That's an imperative. The te is there. The tau epsilon is there. So this is the mood of command. He's using an imperative. He's commanding them to not to fear. This is a command. Okay, thar sete. Okay, I, ego, Amy, it is. It's probably ani in Hebrew, in the Hebrew Bible of the New Testament. Not, and that's may, so this is going to be outside in the indicative because of the command or something that's coming up. Fear, okay, and that's That's a present imperative middle passive form, and the ste is there as the passive. Ste. Ste is from the second person plural part. Okay, stos, the, stosan, like that. So that's where that's coming from. Fear, where you get phobia again. Faveste, and that's an imperative, but in the passive side. Okay. Now I can't wait till Peter, it comes in on the scene. It says answering, apokrites, answering now de que to him auto que ha Peter. There you go, Petros, not Petra or Lithos, by the way. Okay, those are bigger pieces of rock than just Petros. For the most part, in Kennethon, there's a big difference, between those three types of rock: Lithos, Petros, and Petra. You understand what I'm saying? Lithos was the stone on the mouth of the tomb of Christ. That was a big boulder. You understand what I mean? So Petros is a smaller piece of rock, not the foundation. And upon rocks of this kind, said Julius Armenti, Petra, I will build my kirk, my church. You understand what I mean? That's what Jesus said. Peter, Petros, he wasn't called Lithos, Petros. And he wasn't called Petra either. Anyway, getting back to this, said Apen, from the Epo paradigm, said, Lord, Kurie, and that's in the vocative, the epsilon is proving that out. Kurie, just like Te'e, Te'e mu, my God, why hast thou forsaken me like that? If you, and that's Su from the Susu Soy Set paradigm, if you, it is not there, just is Amy A. Eston, command or Ke Lusan. Command. Now he's giving a command. Okay, he's commanding the Lord in this imperative mood here. Aorist mood active, form. So Peter is commanding. It's not in a sexy or sassy way or anything like that, disrespectful. His commands in the Lord's Prayer for us to command the Lord, because he wants it to be so. He wants us to approach him like that. My son, like I said before, can command me to do anything I want, anything that he wants that I promise him. He could point to the juice and say, if he could just talk and say, you promised me that juice. I want that juice. Give me that juice. Not in a sexy, sassy way. I'm not talking about that. That's an imperative in the Lord's petition to the Father in John 17:3. Jesus commanded the Father to give his glory back. Verse 5 of chapter 17, there's a command there. Anyway, getting back to this. Command. Kelusan. So Peter is commanding the Lord to command him back. Okay? We call it the imperative of entreaty. I understand that, but that's very watered down. That's just being polite. That's being too respectful. Okay? Man, that's an accusative case. Command me, nobody else. Command me to come to you. There's a limitation in this accusative case construction here. Command me to come. Elthein. Okay, and that's an infinitive. There's no article in before the infinitive. I think the infinitive construction is ain over here, the epsilon iota nu. I believe that's the infinitive construction. Just like sigma alpha iota, just like nu alpha iota, like that, To you. Okay, pros. And that's going to take the accusative, and say is accusative. Ego. Let me see what it is. Su soy se. So se is accusative. So I mean, it's this process taking the accusative case. The preposition is taking, and that's the pronoun, and the accusative. Upon epi. Okay, and that's probably the genitive of place or accusative anyway. Upon the sea, upon the water, ta Hudata. Hudata, from the water. Ha, que ha de, he said, and that's Jesus speaking, apen, he said, come, and that's an imperative. So Peter gave an imperative to the Lord, and the Lord is giving an imperative right back. So Jesus gave an imperative to the disciples not to fear. Then Peter commands the Lord to command him, and you see the Lord commanding Peter. You understand what I'm saying? Come. Elte. Come. Elte. You understand? The mood of command is here. And Greek word kai, wa in Hebrew. Okay, having descended, and that's you knew that kata was gonna be there, you know. Okay, kata vas, having descended, you understand, from apa, from the boat. Okay, from the boat to ploiu, from the boat, and has in brackets Peter. Okay, Petras walked, and that's a AIA, a completed action. Okay, peri pa tesen, and the first aorist is there, sigma epsilon, in the third person singular. The secondary personal ending there is nu, and and the augment is on the second word, that means walk, not on the preposition peri. Upon epi, the water. Okay, ta, and that's in the plural though. The waters, actually, if you want to put it like that, because everything is plural over here. The waters. Okay, neuter plural with an alpha, not an omicron. So the waters, actually, the waters there. I don't know why they said the water. I mean, it's hard to say the waters, but you know, that's what it says in Greek. Plural article, plural noun. Okay, hudata, the water, and okay, came elten to, and that's pros. That's going to take the accusative. Pros tan yesun. That's an accusative case of both words, to Jesus. Seeing, and that's a participle. Okay, blepon. Okay, from blepo. But so I mean, if you're gonna just, all you have to do, I mean, you know, you put blep, you put the omega nu after the stop, the p stop, if you will, and you form the participle by omega and nu, and so that's just it from blepo. Blepon. That's active. That's active. That's a present active participial construction, omega nu. Ha'on, that's present active also. The great Ha'on in verse 14 and 15 of chapter 3 of the Greek Septuagint. That's and also in I believe in I think verse 8 of chapter 1 of Revelation has Ha'on also. Pantocrator, Jesus called the Almighty Pantocrator in that verse also, verse 8, chapter 1 of Revelation. Blepo, okay, from blepo. Now that's there, that's a post positive. Okay, the wind, okay, tan aneman. Aneman, actually. Tan aneman, the wind, okay, charging, it says over here. Charging is Quran. Charging. He was afraid. He was afraid. Efabethe. And that's in the aorist passive. The latent H was proving that though. And so that's just the deal. And so you got the augment here, epsilon before the phi. And this is an oh my word though. Oh my word. which is middle or passive from form but active in meaning. So just keep that in mind. And Greek word kai, having begun. Okay, having begun. That's an aorist participial middle construction. It says over here. So that is a that's mena, not mene, because it's masculine, and then you got the sigma here as the nominative case ending with a connecting vowel, and so that's just it there. Aorist participle middle. So the sigma is encased in the kasi, and the alpha that's first aorist form, and so that's just it there. That's what I believe is saying. To sink, and that's an infinitive to sink. Kata panti zestai. Okay, that's a long Greek word. And he cried out, saying, and legon, we already looked at that. He cried out, ekraxen. I mean, that's easy. Epsilon is the augment. Krak is the stem. The sigma in the kasi goes along with the epsilon as the first aorist third person singular form, and then the nu is a secondary personal ending in the active side of the pool, as I want to say, in that box, if you will, that upper left hand, upper right hand box. Legon saying, okay, Lord, okay, Kyrie, save, and that's an imperative. Okay, sosan. Save me, and that's me. Save me. That's an imperative. So, I mean, you see, it's kind of strange. You see the Lord commanding the disciples, okay? Peter commanding the Lord. You know what I mean. The Lord commanding back. You understand? And then the Lord commanding of Jesus to save him. It's like ping pong. You know what I'm saying? It's like tennis. It says over here, Jesus, okay, Ha Jesus, Jesus, you understand? It says over here, having stretched out, and then having stretched out is actually ek over here for out. Tenas, having stretched out. I wonder if tennis comes from this, Okay. Having stretched out, okay, the hands, and that's Dain Chera. Actually, the hands over there in Luke chapter 24, verse 39, okay, the hands of me and the feet of me, that's Tas Cheras Mu Tus Padas Mu. Add a kai in there. I forgot the kai. And so what I'm saying between the two things. Tain Achera. And that's in the accusative case. And the feminine, by the way. Okay, took hold. Epe la beta. Okay, and that's an indicative form. Aorist indicative middle. You understand? And that's da. So I believe that's what is this? Well, this is in the aorist, so it can only take secondary personal endings, even though some crossover, some crossover like the sigma, the mendete, and stuff like that, methas, the. I mean, some crossover. But you have to classify them in their categories. You just can't, just because they're crossover doesn't mean that, if it's passive, then you say is active. You know what I mean? I mean, it's if it's secondary, you say it's primary. It doesn't go like that. You can't cheat like that. You understand what I'm saying? Took hold, and that's so took hold in the middle. Aorist indicative middle. So That's from the secondary passive side of the. That's third person though. The ta. It's like a genita. That's a third person singular. The ta. Main sa ta metaste mta with a tau omicron. Okay, so that's the complete paradigm there in the secondary passive side of the grid. Okay, and the augment goes with took. Okay, actually, labon actually is found and recorded. Okay, this is the same Greek word for Jesus taking his secondary nature, but it's actually a participle there, a present participle active there in verse 7 of chapter 2 of Philippians. Labon is participle there. Omega Nu is proving that out. You understand what I'm saying? Took hold. Okay, and the augment is not with the preposition. Actually, it goes with the second word in this compound or word here. Apelabeta. Apelabeta. Of him, I'll do. And Greek word kai says lege, and that's in the third person. Lego, leges, lege, legamen, legate, legusi, like that to him. Auto, and that's in the dative case. Said to him, you, and that's not there originally, I don't think. Of little faith. Is micro here someplace? Because that tends to be for small. Ali ga piste. Now the te is the personal ending there, secondary personal ending. Of you of little faith. Okay, you of little faith. Now where's the why? Have you a little faith of it says ace? Why did you doubt? The sauce. Now that's the sauce. Sauce say like that from the aorist morphine sort of paradigm. That will be in the paradigm. And the stasas. And the augment is there. That's one of the saddest errors I've ever seen. Why did you doubt? I mean, this is sad errors right here, man. They should call it a sad errors. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And the stasas. This is sad right here. Why did you doubt? I mean, that's sad. And Greek word kai having entered. Okay, on Panton, and that's a participle, participle active, and Omega Nu is actually the genitive case ending here in this participle, after the participle. Morphine, Nuatal is there, active, and Anas here. That's a preposition. And the stem ba is here. Okay, so anyway, what's left of it? They auton, and that's in the genitive plural, into ace, the boat, okay, ta ploy on, ceased, I should say, ekapasen, and that's an aorist. The augment epsilon is before the kappa, and the sigma epsilon third person singular aorist, first aorist morphine, secondary ending Nu is there. Okay, so this, a lot of this is very basic Greek. Wind, amenas, wind, cease the wind. Those, and that's Hoy, that's an article. Remember that the article set mounts is weak demonstrative. Then de, in, and the boat, okay, to, that's in the dative case, and always takes the dative, by the way. Ploy o, and that's in the dative. The case of interest at Julius Armanti. Worshipped, Praseku nesan. I'll say from praskuneo, which means toward, and it means kiss. It has those two meanings, this compound word over here. Preposition process there can mean toward, and then kuneo means to kiss. That's what it means. Said Vine's completed expository dictionary of all the New Testament words at this point. Okay? So proskuneo means toward and kiss. Okay? Worship, that's what it means. Praseku nesan. And you got the secondary personal ending, and the active side of the pool. Sigma alpha is the first iris morphine. And so that's just the deal. Then you got pra here. Wait for a second. You got pros over here. And then the augment epsilon with the kuneo side of the deal. And that means worship. Him, auto, meaning Jesus, worship him, saying, okay, legantes. We already went through that. Epsilon sigma is the case ending in nominative plural. Nu tau is the active morpheme, one of them anyway. Connecting vowel omicron, and leg is the present tense stem. Truly, alethos of God, theu, okay, of God. That's a genitive of a relationship of God's son, okay, huios, you are, and that's a. Okay, from the Amy A. Esten, Esmen, Este, Asen paradigm. You understand what I'm saying? But this idea that Jesus wasn't worship, man, you got worship right here all across the board. So what can we say about this story? I mean, two different Greek words for spirit. One translated into ghost and one translated into spirit. Okay, here is ghost, and spirit is there recorded in verse 39 in chapter 24 of the Gospel Kata Lucan. Okay, a spirit does not have flesh and bone as you see me have. So I'm not just a spirit, said Jesus. And they should have known better. They thought that he was a spirit walking on the water. I don't think that nobody thought that Peter was a spirit walking on the sea when Jesus commanded him to come. You understand what I'm saying? Very interesting stuff. So they had no kick coming to them. I mean, they had no excuse. They were taught, to go through tribulation when Jesus was, was going to return to heaven. Right? Just like, Peter and the disciples were, Peter and the disciples were alone in the boat. Okay? But yet they were not alone because Jesus was praying for them in the mountain. And now Jesus went to heaven, okay? And then left the disciples, but not alone, not orphans. You understand what I'm saying? Remember, he makes intercession for us. So he's still doing the same thing he did before. But they did the same thing, that they did before. They thought that he was a spirit. And Jesus had to say no. For a spirit does not have flesh and bones. Greek word, sarka, flesh, and bone, astea, as you see me have. So what can we conclude out of this? Well, I mean, Jesus had a body when he walked on the sea. Peter had a body when he walked on the sea. Therefore, everybody's walking on the water in their birthday suits. The only body that Peter ever had upon earth was that body. And the only body that Jesus ever had, continuously so, was that body. And so what I'm saying, I say continuously so because he probably had a body. One of three bodies, popped on the scene to Abraham. And the Trinity probably had those bodies, but they weren't continuous bodies. You understand what I'm saying? So that's just the deal. And that's just the deal all across the board. This Angelo Quinones is giving glory to the God of Israel. God is not the God of the dead. but of the living. And that means that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were very much alive at the time that Jesus said those words. It also means in a secondary sense that because Jesus was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, that means he has a God. That's all. It doesn't mean anything of creation or consistence or anything else. Doesn't mean anything at all like that. It means he has a God because, okay, he had a God because he was raised from the dead. I'm not the God of the dead, but of the living. So if he's the God of the living, he's the God of Christ. That's all. That's just a deal. But y'all gotta accept the whole sandwich. Y'all accept just the meaty part to y'all. Verse 9 of chapter 1 of Hebrews, but you don't accept the bread that surrounds the meat of the sandwich. You understand what I'm saying? You don't believe that Jesus was called, okay, Hatheos was special definiteness in Hebrews chapter 1 verse 8. And y'all don't believe okay, a whole bunch of other stuff. Understand what I'm saying? Well, there's Angelo Quinones again, giving glory to God the Father, to the Lord Jesus Christ, and then the Holy Spirit. Now, please subscribe to my channel. Please give me a thumbs up, and please leave a comment on the screen. This is part of an appendix that actually heads up itself, basically. And this is part of the great anastasis, not agnostic. It doesn't mean agnostic when I'm saying that. Anastasis means resurrection. Agnostic means, like I don't know, You know what I mean? Agnostic. I'm not saying agnostic. I'm talking about anastasis, the bodily resurrection of Jesus. Okay? Now, the resurrection of Jesus is the capstone of Christianity. Remove it and all else crumbles. It is a singular doctrine that elevated Christianity above all the pagan religions of the world. May you share this truth to your family and friends while it is yet day. Amen.